talking. We're going to start that over, y'all, because I had y'all muted. Welcome to the Bigger Than Food podcast. My name is Apollo Woods. I am your host, and we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Daniel White. If you probably have seen the moving trucks all across Oklahoma City, all across the state, because you're Oklahoma City based, and you're also in Tulsa as well, doing commercial and residential. So here is the man behind the vision. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, and I'm excited to have this conversation. So welcome to the Bigger Than Food podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. So what I like to do is I like to talk about the person, because like I was telling you before, people get into talking about what they do more than who they are, because what you do is a reflection of who you are as a person. And so as y'all see, he came in showing me up. He got his tie on. I saw like, man, just be casual. So let people tell me who you are. So who is Daniel? And then tell me, who is Daniel White?
Daniel, Christ follower, chef, personal chef.
Okay.
Athlete.
I didn't know that.
But definitely motivated, good person, always looking to help somebody whenever I can. Grew up with a single mom, so I definitely got a sweet spot there for people like that. But love to cook, love sports, and love to travel. So
okay, good. So see, I didn't know the thing about the food part. So now I know that you like to cook. So you're from Oklahoma City, born and raised in Oklahoma City. Talk about growing up in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, so I grew up
because you mentioned your mom, right? You
yeah.
mentioned your mom. So talk about childhood. Like, talk about what growing up was like for you.
Yeah, so one of my very, very first earliest memories was my mom and dad going through the divorce process.
Pull the mic a little closer to you.
Sorry. But my mom and dad going through the divorce process. I think when I was, 2 or 3, I just remember kicking at my dad when they were kind of arguing. And at 5, we moved to a small trailer in Edmond. And so that trailer, I grew up from 95. I was 5 years old to 2007. So from 5 to 17 years old, we grew up on 500 South State Street, number 49. And so
so this is what you're going to experience. I'm going to kind of interject in some things because people will kind of like say stuff and kind of move on from it. I don't think people assume that there are mobile rental units or trailers in Edmond. Yeah. I don't think that's something that people even think about when you think about Edmond being a suburban metro area of Oklahoma City.
Yeah, there's definitely like pockets, I guess, of like poverty or low income. But where we grew up was, my cousins even used to joke with me that lived on the east side. Oh, you live in Edmond, man. You got all the money. Y'all have more money than me, I promise you. But it was just my mom and myself that grew up in this trailer. She did have a roommate for a little bit, and then he had 2 kids. So me and the 2 boys shared a room. The other guy had a room, and my mom had one. But it still kind of, for lack of better terms, like haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
Like just going through that whole process, and my mom being in poverty and not being able to do everything. She did everything she could for me and did a really good job. But growing up in Edmond, you knew that you were poor. I guess if you grew up and everybody around you poor, you may not know. But if you go to an Edmond school, it's very clear and apparent that you're the kid that doesn't have the money,
Right.
And so it was a little taxing, I guess, mentally, like going through that, or like shades of like maybe embarrassment, where girls want to take me home after school when I was like 16, and I'd have them drop me off 2 blocks away, and I said, well, where's your house? I'll walk. Right, because they had BMWs at 16, and my first car was a 95 Ford Taurus, purple. My friends used to call it the Barney Mobile. And
I had an 84 Cutlass.
I had speakers in it though. So, but yeah, it was my first car. I bought it for $800, right? But then the girls and everybody else had new Ford trucks, BMWs, things like that. So
when did you realize that? At 5, did you realize that, hey, we don't have a lot. We're considered the poor folks in Edmond, or did that realization happen later?
Probably around middle school, high school. Not so much like, early on, but specifically, especially high school, when people could drive. And a lot of my friends lived in Oklahoma City, and, they'd even come over from the north side or something. And they tell me that I lived in the trash, right? They would literally throw their trash, like their wrappers from like the snacks. Like we'd have like oatmeal cream pies. I specifically remember like one of my friends like opening it up and throwing the plastic wrapper outside. He's like, man, this whole place trash anyways. Right. And so like, I still remember that. But yeah, going through that process, growing up and understanding that, I remember my mom maybe not being able to afford a couple of things and shutting the door, not wanting me to hear her, but I could hear my mom whimper about not being able to pay the bills.
Right.
I'm gonna take some showers at the YMCA because she used to work. She had 3 jobs growing up, stuff like that. So you have to shower at the Y, obviously. Yeah, something's going on. But
so when you reflect back, and we'll kind of go back to some different things because when we talked before, I'm coming back to those. But how was that for you, like as a child experiencing that? What did that do for, how did you turn that into motivation to do your best in school, like in K through 12, like middle school, high school? How did you turn that to motivation where you could have turned that into something else? Or did you? I don't know. Like, what direction do you feel like you were going as you were experiencing all those emotions?
Yeah, the guys who grew up with me, and even my mother, if she was here, she'd tell you, I was going down the wrong path for a while, and I got in quite a bit of trouble, especially like in high school and early on. Hanging out with the wrong crowd, doing stuff I probably shouldn't be doing. Like I said, my mom had 3 jobs, so I had a lot of time to myself, or having to get rides home, things like that. But having experienced that, again, kind of going down the wrong path for a long time, college wasn't even an option or a consideration for me. Like that wasn't even on my radar. Just so happened I played basketball. Again, one of the 3 jobs my mom has was at the YMCA, and I was too young to stay at home. So a lot of times I'd go to the Y and I'd just be in the gym for hours on Saturday. She worked like 7 a.m. to 1 or 2 p.m. every Saturday. And then after school was right across from Memorial and stuff, I'd just walk over to the gym. So I spent a lot of time there and got pretty good at it. My junior year,
did you like basketball, or it became a thing where
I actually liked it? Basketball is my life for a very, very long time. And I truly enjoyed it, but I was never, and this was before social media. So for you to be able to get recruited, your parents had to be somebody, right? They had to know a coach, or you had to have funds to be able to travel these big tournaments. You couldn't just make a reel on Instagram and upload.
So were you on an AAU team?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah. My longest tenured team was the Bears, and so I played with the Bears. Coach Carter, James Carter, shout out to him, but he did a lot for me growing up. And as far as even picking me up and taking me to practice, taking me home after practice, because maybe my mom had to go to work or something like that. So he really fostered a relationship with me and helped me out a lot growing up. But then just going back to like having that love for the game of basketball, and I got good at it, and I started getting recruited. That was the first time I even considered, maybe I can go to college. I was never bad. Like I never tried to like intentionally tank grades.
Right.
I was a decent student and I showed up, but once I got good at basketball, and I felt like my ACT score was a 17 or an 18.
Hey, look. I'm not good at testing. So my ACT was a 19. So and I got it to you. I think there's probably another reason why I got it to you, but still. So yeah, I think that as I'm hearing you talk about this, but how are you as the person, as that young teenager person, and you're watching your mom work these 3 jobs, you're navigating the social dynamics of being in middle school, a teenager, you're navigating that, but how are you as the person?
I don't think, when you're growing up in that, you just kind of do the best you can with what you have and the resources around you, right? So there was a point in time when I was creating income to help my mom, essentially, at the end of the day. Even if the money that I hustled to get intentionally, like specifically went in her pocket and or just went in mine, so I was no longer a burden to her.
Gotcha.
So I don't have to come ask her for $3 to go to McDonald's or whatever I needed at the time. I could at least try to provide for myself a little bit. But those same skills that I learned when I was younger is the same reason I'm doing okay in business today, because I am resourceful. I do have a lot of additional skill sets. When you grow up and you're the man of your house at a very young age, I know how to do plumbing work. I know how to do electrical. I know how to work on cars. I know how to do so much stuff. I mean, true story. Like we mentioned, like my tie earlier, a guy in Dillard's, the first like job interview I ever had when I got out of college, taught me how to tie my tie. It's an older black guy.
Is he still there?
I don't know, man. I don't know what happened to him. He was like from the.
It's something about guys that teach how to tie and shine shoes. For whatever reason, they usually at that job for like 30, 40 years, always around.
I never shopped for dress clothes before. And it's the first time I went in the store, and he asked me, he said, "Young man, do you even know how to tie the tie?" And I said, No, I'll figure it out. And he said, No, I'm not going to sell it to you until you figure this out. So he sat me down. We looked in the mirror, and I mean, it took 30 minutes. He sat right
Yeah.
next to me, told me how to put a dimple in it,
Mhm.
and do the deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, I learned a lot of skills from either the community members, people who took a
Yeah.
unique interest in me, and or just the absence of what I didn't have
Right.
forced me to be able to, like, one thing my mom always did, she always bought brand new cars growing up, and she
Okay.
only had like 3 my entire child, like every like 7 or 8
Mhm.
years,
Yeah.
she'd buy one new car.
Mhm.
She always said, like, I can't afford to have a car break down. That
Mhm.
costs more than having a new car. So she would always buy a new car, made sure it had an extended warranty.
Yeah.
Because she had a young child she had to take care of,
Mhm.
right? So
Yep.
she had to be at work, I had to be at school. So
Mhm.
she always had a new car. She never bought used, just because if it ever went down. And a lot of times, like, if something small happened, again, I'm the guy getting
Yeah.
under the hood.
Do you feel like that you took on a role of being the man of the house? Did you take it on, or did you feel like you were expected to do it?
Good question. Yeah, no, my mom never asked me for anything. She's 100% self-sufficient, survivor, strong, all
Okay.
that. So just naturally being in that role and being a young man looking around, like, I assumed the role myself as a protector and a provider. If something happens, she needs anything, I'm there for her.
I think strangely, I think that's what, like, young boys think and do, right? For whatever, it's something in us that we want to say, like, I want to protect and care for.
Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned food. So you're a self-taught chef.
Yep.
You like to cook.
I do.
Do you remember the first thing that you felt like you were good at cooking it?
Probably mac and cheese.
All right, now look, macaroni and cheese it's always a debate around Thanksgiving, especially in our households. So what's your secret sauce to making good macaroni and cheese?
Well, I don't make that anymore.
Okay.
But I think seasoning really says a lot about either the geographic area of which a person's from, right? I just had a conversation today about Cajun seasoning and
Yep.
whether they like it or not. But anyways, the seasoning tells a lot about a dish. I think if you put too much salt in it, you shouldn't be shouldn't be a chef in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But there's no secret sauce essentially to, like, what I put in it. Definitely, light salt, pepper. Again, I don't make it anymore because I don't even eat that way.
But why was macaroni and cheese your thing? Because some people might be like, hey, I do like grilled cheese, or they might do like there's might be spaghetti or hamburgers or whatever. But why was yours macaroni and cheese?
I think it's the easiest, like, side dish to almost go with anything, whether it's steak, whether it's fish, whatever it is, red or white meat, whatever, asparagus, things like that. It's like the perfect extra side dish. Okay. It's easy to cook. It's got a long shelf life, which isn't a good thing, talking about health wise. But anyways, it's got a long shelf life. So, like, as a young man, you live by yourself. I was like 23, 24 at the time. I can buy 10 boxes, put it up, right? And it's always going to be there.
Yeah, those little dollar boxes aren't dollar boxes anymore.
Yeah,
the price of macaroni and cheese has gone up. What about, so did you find yourself, mom being very busy working and providing, not trying to, but providing? You became, like, I guess, like a lock-key kid and being self-sufficient, independent. Did you find yourself cooking for yourself or having to find things to cook for yourself because mom was really busy?
Not at a young age. She always either brought me food home or cooked. I didn't know how to cook until I actually bought my own house. So it wasn't until I was 23 years old that I started dabbling in the kitchen, trying to figure it out. Because at that time, mom's not there, right? So you got to figure it out. And so that's when I started getting really easy to cook stuff like lily beans, mac and cheese, microwavable food, simple hamburgers, things like that. But that's when I first started experimenting with what I guess wanted to eat as an adult, rather than just what my mom brought home.
Mm-hmm. So do you believe that the watching your mom work as hard as she did influenced how disciplined you've become?
For sure. Yeah. And she never complains about nothing. Right. And she puts her head down, she goes to work, she does. And then it gets totally different generation. But not specifically about women, but like men included. I don't think I know anybody that has 3 actual jobs. Like, I say that and it's almost like a thing of the past. Like, you know, people have like side hustles and things like maybe Uber Eats, you deliver and stuff like that, but you still set your own hours and your own time. You do it at your will. My mother had like a place to be at a specific time, 3 different jobs. Like she worked for the same company that she works for today called Cunningham Investments. Okay. She's a CEO of that company, small business now, financial advisor.
Wait, hold on. Wait. That's one of those things, right? So mom had to obviously be in a different type of role at that company.
Yeah.
To now she's the CEO of that company.
Correct.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. Wait a minute. let's unpack that. So, Mom, do you remember what did she ever tell you what she started off as at that company?
Man, she was actually a temp labor. What's that local company here that does temp services? Bob Plunk's company.
Express.
Express.
Okay.
She was a temp employee for Express.
Okay.
They put her with Cunningham Investments at the time. Michael Cunningham is a great guy, mentor to me to this day, but he was getting started with his financial career, or his career in financial advisory. And so when he got started with that, my mom came alongside. I don't know exactly what she was doing, but she was just temp labor. And then that was what,
20 years ago?
Literally probably 20, 25 years ago.
So 25 years ago, starting off as a temp,
Mm-hmm.
and now she's the chief executive officer of this company that she started off as a temp on.
Correct. And then, during that, again, she had 2 other jobs. She worked at the Y every single Saturday. Like I said, 7 to 2 in the afternoon.
Mm.
And then we threw papers on Sunday morning. And so we literally, that's probably why I got good at sports. all the papers would be on the floorboard in front of me. And she'd say, this house, and throw it out the door. And
have you ever asked her about that? Have you, if it's too much, right? Yeah. Have you ever asked her, like, that experience of, or just that part of, she's working 3 jobs to provide, she's working hard, you're hearing how she's experiencing life, right? And you go from meager beginnings, you're also being labeled, and people are saying things about you, and y'all living in this trailer home in the suburbs, and you got the talk from in Edmond. You got to talk from your kinfolk on a different side of town. And I'm pretty sure she's hearing that. Have you talked to her about that?
No.
Has she mentioned anything like what she was thinking and what was driving her by having it? She's now the CEO of a company she started off as a temp for.
Yeah, no, she does well. I'm proud of her, and she's stable and everything's okay financially and things like that now. But the most that we talk about it is probably, we laugh about it now about the times that how poor my mother used to be, what she had to do, but it's never been really an in-depth conversation.
Because y'all not making box macaroni and cheese anymore.
Yeah, no, we don't use
Okay. So I want to go back. to, go from you're an athlete, getting recruited, you get an offer to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how it felt to get that offer to go to college?
Yeah, I do. And it was a big weight lifted off.
And where did you attend undergrad?
Southern Nazarene University. Yeah, here in Oklahoma City area. So actually the first game that Southern Nazarene came to recruit me, I also quit after the game, which very few people know that story unless you're in the locker room.
Okay.
But they were actually recruiting another guy on the team. And honestly, I was the best player on the team. They just weren't made aware until they came to the game. And so I was all state and everything.
So they were coming to recruit somebody else.
Yeah, to somebody else.
And then they saw you and you quit.
Yeah, and it wasn't because of that. I got mad. I think we missed a dunk. We were in Moore. We were playing Moore. I went down. I missed a dunk. We lost by more than 2 points, probably like 8-12. I felt like at the time as a young man, like coach blamed me for the game.
Okay.
I gave this elaborate Kobe speech where I'm the reason we win, or I got to be the reason we lose. Like, you blaming everything on me. And I said, I'll just quit since I'm the reason we win and lose. And took my jersey off, threw it, whatever. And my teammates were like, man, you can't quit, all this stuff. And at the whole time, Southern Nazarene was outside the door waiting to talk to me. And I took, a while to even come outside. I didn't want to talk.
Did somebody tell them that they're waiting on you?
Yeah, they just said they covered for me, right? They were just like, oh, it's taking longer, or he'll be out in a minute, or whatever that conversation was.
So this is going on in the locker room, and they became aware that they were also there to see you and waiting on you.
Yeah, they
wanted. But you didn't know what was going on. You didn't know that at that time.
That might have been the second game that SNU had came to, and I was aware that they were there, and then they wanted to come in the locker room or talk to me after the game. But like our high school coaches had either kept them at bay and kept them outside or something like that. But I ended up quitting before I talked to them.
Okay.
After that game.
Did you go back to the team?
I did go back to the team.
How was
I didn't
that?
miss any games. I didn't miss any games. I was a knucklehead in high school. I was very hard to deal with.
Okay.
Especially like I think my coach did a great job looking back at it today as far as trying to, because again, I didn't grow up with like a male influence, like an older male influence. And so a lot of the way that I thought and the influences that I did receive were from guys my age that were probably not the way I should be thinking or acting or conducting myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, when you have absence in that father figure, especially that it's your dad,
right?
You know, very similar with, and as you're talking, I'm identifying that because that's very similar with me. It's all this anger that I had, and everybody knew I was going to college, in sports, and I was a Boy Scouts, I was an usher, I was what else? I did so much different stuff, right? They knew, but some of that energy that I had was from, you know, stuff at home and whatnot. And some of my biggest influence were my older cousins or just my friends. Right. I remember one time I'm gonna filter this in a way because this is on a podcast. I wanted to have a side hustle, and I was bad at it. I was terrible. I was terrible at it, and I'm glad that I didn't do it. And then I didn't continue because it just wasn't me.
Right.
So as I got older, I gravitated a lot to men that I looked up to. Like when I moved to Houston, I didn't know, I never met a black millionaire. Right. I never saw a black professor in college. I never actually got a chance to talk to a politician, or I didn't know black folks spoke other languages because I just never had that direct experience. So, but some of my responses and things I would do were because there was that lack of stability and wisdom that I needed. But on the other side of that too, I'm grateful to have them because now I understand, right, the wisdom that comes with that. So that's I can appreciate what you're in that you're sharing, because someone will look at this and say, "Oh man, that's that guy with a nice beard and trimmed up and suit and tie, got a big company." He doesn't have any of those experiences. Right. He doesn't understand that. So you mentioned mentorship. When did you start realizing that, hey, I got something that somebody younger wants to hear, or I want to pour into somebody else? When did mentoring or working with youth become something that you decided that I want to pour into somebody else?
Last few years, specifically, just because I know how valuable mentorship has been to me, and I relate to you when you say, like, as I've gotten older, I've related to and identified, like, literally most of my friends. You know, it's funny because we're out and I'm like, hey, my boy's on the way. I'm like, your boy, and it's a 65-year-old white guy. And I'm like, this is my boy. But your experience that you had when I say my boy, you thought I meant somebody looked exactly like me at the same age and everything else, right? But I literally, the way that I think and conduct myself and everything else, I really identify more with these guys, and I appreciate their experience, their knowledge, their opinions. You know, I told somebody the other day, I said, I've never, literally never, and I told a young, his name's JB, you know, from Oklahoma City. I told him I was proud of him. Yeah. I can't remember the last guy that's my age that looks like me said, man, I'm proud of you. Yep. But I will tell you, all the time, I was with one of my other buddies the other day, 62, older black guy. He said, man, I'm so proud of you, man. I'm your biggest fan. Yeah. Nobody that's 30 years old is also telling me, because it's almost like they see it as like I'm competition, or, you know, there's only so much in this marketplace. Right. And a lot of times we separate ourselves more than bringing us together, but it means so much for someone to say, I'm proud of you, or like there's more people counting on you than somebody else. Me having bigger, better movers, I have a lot of guys that are younger, blue collar, usually of color, whatever. Right. And so I see the disconnect, or I see where they may speak out in anger, or like the lack of like home training, for lack of better terms, where they don't know how to conduct themselves yet, or they do need a little mentorship and say, hey man, hey, don't do it like that.
It's the discipline, right?
Right. And it's like no one ever taught them that. And maybe they were the man at their household. And just because they have kids doesn't mean you're grown,
Right.
right? Like you don't have the maturity. And so you got kids raising kids. They're trying to do the best they can, but I really relate to them and that experience growing up. I just got an email today on the way here, but this year, one of my goals was to finally join the Big Brother, Big Sister program in Oklahoma. And I got my training. I already did the interview and stuff. I got my training email this morning to begin to start that. But being at my age and not being too old and still being young enough to like walk the walk, talk the talk, I understand where you're coming from. I feel like a burden on my heart to give back to somebody that somebody else did for me 100 times over, right? And I know my value in the community, dealing with these young kids, that number one, everybody that mentors you may not be giving the best advice or sound advice. Not saying mine's that much better or different. I think that my experiences have led me to the place that I am now, to be able to give sound advice and to be able to listen to them and relate them, and also not judge them for where they're at or what they're going through at the time, you know? So anyways, that's a long answer to your question, but I've really been on my heart the last couple of years, just having the experience with a lot of my frontline staff and seeing kind of where they lack at things to like know how important mentorship is.
Because you could tell, because what men bring is discipline and structure. And a lot of times you can kind of identify like, what I'm seeing is not the issue. The issue is not the issue. This, what you call it, acting out or whatever, it's become just a way of me not being able to express. I remember the first time I became an Eagle Scout in 1994, and I was in Houston, and I went to go visit a scout troop. So I was like, I'm gonna get back into scouting and mentor. And I walked up to this young scout, and his scout leader was white. And he was like, he's an Eagle Scout. And he was like, Black people aren't Eagle Scouts. And I was like, whoa. Because that was the first time where for me, it was, from what I recall, maybe one of two Black males to earn Eagle Scout in Stevens County here in Oklahoma. So I'm coming from that place. And then I go to a place that is predominantly Black. All the kids are Black in the troop, and I'm excited. I'm like, I'm coming. And that was the point I realized, like, he doesn't think that we have something in common. I was like, wait a minute. I don't have a lot of money. I mean, I still drive my old Honda Accord. And so when I told him, he was like, wait, you mean I can? It's like, yeah, like you could be an Eagle Scout too. And just to see in mentor, because I was a big at one point in time as well, just to see how people, you could see their minds kind of unlock. That is, I mean, this is a possibility for me too. So I definitely commend you for looking at the blessings that you've been given, and how life has afforded you to be able to give that back to somebody else. Because however long you're with your little or your mentoring, that moment in that person's life is going to come back. 100%. And they're going to think like, and I remember when Mr. Daniel, wherever they call you, he talked to me. I remember that. They may not at the time appreciate it, but they're going to remember that.
I've got a whiteboard at my home office, and at the very top, aside from all my to-do list, whatever on it, it literally says make meaning, not just money. So like as a constant daily reminder, you know, money comes and goes. It's not a big deal. It affords you the ability to maybe have time to pass along to somebody else. But that is what I kind of take the most pride in, is where I'm at now, and that value that I have, being able to pass that along to somebody else. Okay, so let's get into some business, man, because we talk about this company, and so someone who doesn't know you would think, oh, you probably had this commercial residential moving company for a long time. Now I've dug into the website, looked at it. You're not just a moving company. I believe you're a moving company that leverages technology. That's what I've seen, because you got to have systems, right? But what did you do before that? So after college, you went into insurance, which is funny, not funny, but your mom was in financial planning. That was a career, and then you ended up choosing a career to become an insurance agent. So how was that? How did that go? Yeah, let's start there. I think you kind of know where I'm getting ready to kind of lead into. Yep. So after college, I took a first job I went to a company called QuickPrint. It's a local company here in Oklahoma City. It was supposed to be a sales job. Anyways, I had a college degree. They had me in the back with a college degree, and I was doing what's called saddle stitching. And saddle stitching is essentially where it's a wheel.
Go ahead.
Okay. You basically have a wheel, and it's a pedal, and the wheel and the pedal is spinning, and I'm stapling a bunch of different books together for a company called Inojex in the back of a commercial warehouse. So I'm sitting there, and it's 2 weeks in. My mother never let me quit anything a day in my life, and I went home and I was miserable. And I told her, I said, I don't want to do this. It's not why I went to school. It's not why I went to college. And she told me I couldn't quit until I had another job. That was the first decision I made that was outside of her. Okay. I was like, I'm quitting. I'll figure it out, but I'm quitting. So I literally at lunch, I went to lunch one day, came home. That was the last time I ever worked for somebody again. I only took an actual corporate job for like 2 weeks. That was it. I looked at something you could kind of work for yourself, make your own money. Got in the insurance business. I found that. Started that from scratch, literally what you call like dialing for dollars. I bought X dates, which are people's like upcoming renewal dates. And I just started calling. And I mean, I would be in the office all the time and dialing for dollars. Like the peak times, like 5 to 7, people getting off of work, heading home, and you're in your car. So now I got your undivided attention. Anyways, I did that for years, built it up, sold it in 2017. And I thought it was kind of like a God wink type deal because at the same time, I was building another company called Insurance Insight, which was a lead generation company similar to Angie Leads, Thumbtack, something like that, where we connect consumers with insurance agents in their area. Anyways, try to start that company. I failed to realize that I did not actually calculate customer acquisition costs properly. Meaning, even though I'm not specifically selling insurance, just putting consumers in touch with insurance agents in the area, I'm still competing for the same click keyword as like Liberty Mutual or State Farm. They have way more dollars than I do. So the average cost per click was about $125 a click. A decent conversion is 10%. So that means I got to spend $1,500, $1,300 just to get one potential customer.
So you mentioned that click. So when you're running, Facebook ads is a big thing, and I realize that people don't pay attention to that cost per click.
You have to.
They don't. So they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's just a click. Or they choose not to run an advertisement or a campaign based on clicks because it is about data and the transactions. And it sounds like early on, you realize the value of capturing data that builds up your pipeline because that data is going to influence how you make decisions in your business.
Yeah, for sure. But we miscalculated because I don't have that much money. Right. It was going to run out pretty quick. If you're spending $1,500 to acquire a customer. The other problem was we would have sold the leads on average for, I think it was $40 per lead, and we would sell it to up to 3 different agents. So we make
so you're still short.
Way short. $1,000.
Yeah, you're $1,000. Yeah.
Not even close. Anyways, again, learned it the hard way. Sometimes, you go to school, like we talked earlier, but you went to school, got your MBA, and they never actually taught you how to run a business. Right? It's like some things you only learn by doing. Your MBA was probably about $100,000. I lost $100,000. Right. I went to school and they paid for it, luckily, because I had a full ride basketball scholarship. But I mean, that was $100,000 loss that I took on the tech website. I had that. I had my real estate, and I also invested in a local brewery here. We did an acquisition. It's called Mustang Brewery. It was originally founded in 2007. So I was one of the daily managing partners of Mustang Brewery. We acquired that in 2017. I did some flip houses with my real estate company, and still own some land in real estate to this day that I bought from that sale of the insurance company. But I had to pull the plug, man. I couldn't do it. So I pulled the plug out of Insurance Insight. I had to pivot. And I had a Mercedes S550. I had 2 motorcycles. I sold my flip house, pulled the plug on that. I regained all the cash that I had. And then once I got my cash, I was trying to figure out what I would actually like. I like service-based businesses. I don't like product-based businesses. So even before COVID, logistics were always an issue with the product-based business. Right. So when you make beer, I got to get the malt from this part of the country. I got to get the hops from California or Seattle. I got to get the PackTech lids or the plastic or the cardboard. I got to get the labeling. It's literally like 16 different parts.
There's a huge supply chain
just to make one beer. Right. And so I didn't like product-based business. I remember from my insurance days, I really like service-based business. Meaning, hey, you sign this piece of paper, pay me $200 a month. If something happens, call me. Done. Right. Minimal service work, easy to operate. I get paid up front. It's easy to work with. So I was looking at weighing all those options. I was thinking, again, insurance was my most experience. So with my 5 years in insurance, I was like, who do I know? Realtors, insurance agents, and mortgage loan officers. Bunch of roofers. But at the end of the day, the commonality is everyone that I know is somehow involved or related to a real estate transaction. So then I'm like, well, where can I fit in, and what service that people don't like doing that they might be willing to pay for? Moving. And I thought through it. And I said, well, okay, it's minimal capital expense up front,
Mm-hmm.
low barriers to entry, so anyone can start a moving company.
Yep.
Licensing is easy. I mean, it's minimal, and the investment that I made just recently in Insurance Insight, when I lost all that money, when I pulled the plug on that, because it's tech, you walk away with zero, like nothing. You just lose. But whenever I walked away, if Bigger Better Movers doesn't work, 90% of your initial investment is going to be your truck.
Okay.
It's a hedged bet, right? So it's like, all right, it's still a risk, but it's minimal risk,
Okay.
because there's still a way out where I don't have to sell everything.
Okay. So I want to go back to the part of when you are realizing that you're going to have to liquidate.
Mm-hmm.
Sell this, sell that. You got to, you feel like you're getting to a place of success. You got this nice car. You're feeling good. Like going from meager beginnings growing up to feeling like that you're turning the corner. Things are going great, and you get like this punch in the gut, and you're like, I got to sit with myself and figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that space of like, what do I need to do to recover, and then having to realize I'm going to have to sell those things?
Yes, I do. A couple things. So the confidence that I have in myself, like, if you're a high level athlete or whatever, whether you win a championship that year or not, you may still know in your heart of hearts that you're really that good. Whether you win Rookie of the Year with Chet or Wemby, whoever, either one could be Rookie of the Year, right? But anyways, I had enough confidence in my ability to get back to where I was, that it was just time. Yeah. And so that's kind of the waiting game. Again, I know I've been there before. It doesn't get much worse, in my opinion, like from how I grew up. So I wasn't scared to go back to that place. It was something I didn't want to go, but I've been here before. So now I'm coming from a place of experience, not just like of the unknown. I've been here before. Okay. And I know how to rebound and reconnect. And I built my insurance agency from scratch. So I was like, I can do it again. I've done it. I've seen the blueprint. I've done it before. I know I can do it. I just have to figure out how to do it. And that's how I started Bigger Better Movers. And it wasn't too much of like, I got 3 months behind on my mortgage, during that time. And it was just a timing deal. Honestly, I could have paid it earlier than getting 3 months behind. But in my mind, I had a plan because I knew I needed to reinvest these dollars to buy this truck, to pay for these fees. And so I was allocating funds to where I get my biggest return on my investment. Me paying my mortgage gets me no return on my investment. But if I buy another truck, or I invest in this material, these specific dollars or whatever, I can book another move. So
there's all this. So entrepreneurship is a risk, right? You are looking for the solution to the problem. Yep. That's what you're looking for. And I'm loving hearing you talk about this, because I don't think that drive comes from having everything that you need in life, having it easy. No, I don't. It doesn't come from there. Like, it has to come from a place of, I think, pain and resistance builds this Teflon energy and this mindset of, I could either go back and just quit and wallow in my feelings, or I can say, I'm not gonna let this thing beat me. So when you decided that I'm going to pull this trigger, who's around you to help navigate you in that process? Because you still need people to talk to. You still need to be in a place where someone can help you guide in that decision. But you have in your mind, if I do these things, this is going to happen. What type of people do you surround yourself with as you're going in this next transition?
I think if you dealt with any when I say real entrepreneur, not saying that some are not.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Right. Like, but more from a status level, meaning like
people who've really they've done something,
they've really done it, right? And been through it long enough. Every single entrepreneur business owner you talk to went through this valley. Every single one of them. Yep. If they say they didn't, they're lying, or they don't have enough experience. So at that point, I don't want to hear your opinion anyways. Right. Because you've never been there. That means you haven't done it long enough. So everybody's failed at some point. And I see a lot of people now, like they want to be serial entrepreneurs. And to me, that was a thing at first. I was like, I want to be a serial entrepreneur. But then the reality is, you can own as many businesses as you want, but if you don't make money, you can never fulfill your purpose. You have to create revenue to be able to do the things that you want to do. So going back to your question, like when I was in there, and the things I surrounded myself with was people who've already been where I am now. And so again, having conversations, I had a couple recent ones.
But did you seek them out? were you seeking them out, or you were already developing this network in relationships where you were just in the environment?
I was already in the environment, but it's almost like, and I was comfortable having the conversation with those guys.
Okay.
For the simple fact that they understand, and it wasn't from like, oh, I was going to be judged, or they're going to like, man, you failed, man. You should get out the game, out the business. You don't really know what you're doing. I was 100% comfortable having conversations with them and listening to their advice because I knew it was from a place of experience, and they knew how to pivot as well. And so that advice.
So it was something about that relationship developed with them that allowed, there was a place of trust.
100%.
Like you trusted what they were going to tell you, whether you liked it or not.
Right.
You trusted them.
Yeah. And you need people like that in your corner. They're not going to tell you. There's so many people. I've got personal friends on both sides that they want me to tell them what they already think they know. And it's like, you just want me to feel good. If you need a counselor, go do that. Right. And, we might not talk for a week or 2 weeks or a month, but at least I know I kept it real with you. And there's some, like I had another good friend. I got some entrepreneurs that I know personally, business owners in the community that do call me for either advice or feedback or whatever. And the girl I'm thinking about, she started a bar and she brought on a business partner. And I said, hey, that's not your guy. He's not the guy for a lot of reasons. Here's why. I listened to him. I said, I do wish you the best of luck, but based on my experience in the past, I feel like I have a responsibility to at least say how I feel, because I've also watched people fail in front of me. I never said anything. And then I feel like I almost partaked in that loss because I feel like I could have prevented it or told you something. So I have a responsibility to, like other people. Yeah. Hey man, just consider it. And here's why.
Right. What you do with it is on you.
Yeah. And it's on you. And then when they come back, as they have, and not all the time, sometimes they say, hey, you were right. I messed up. I shouldn't have did it. I should have did that. At that point, though, I don't say I told you so.
Yeah,
that's not the right answer either. So I'm like, that's okay. So at this point, here's how we got to get out of it and then pivot from there.
Yeah, what I'm learning from working with a lot of small businesses is you could almost predict how long it's going to last. Because there are things you look for, and these are behaviors of people that are working to be successful. These behaviors that I'm seeing are not behaviors of successful people. Right. Whether it's ambition or drive or research or learning or being coachable and teachable, you see it. And then I still struggle with this. A year and a half goes by and I'm like, the doors are closed. And you can see it coming. Car traffic is slower. The responsiveness is getting lower. The absence is there, and you're like, all you have to do is really get over that ego or that pride and say, I need help.
Yeah.
And with asking for help, there's going to be an investment. Yeah. Whether you might have to spend money to make it, or you might have to give more time to turn it around. And I wish more entrepreneurs would put aside this shame or guilt of not making it aside to allow somebody to come and say, this is how you're going to turn it around. Like, don't give up on that dream and turn it around, because not everybody has that place of, even if this doesn't work, I'm moving on to the next thing. I might try it again. So that way I can push through that moment. Like you mentioned earlier, you had to make a tough decision, but you made it knowing that, like, oh yeah, it's going to work. It's going to be tough for now. Oh, but it's going to work. Yeah. It's going to work.
And I'm not always right. I could have failed and went the other way, but it's my confidence in my experience. It's not arrogance, which if you don't know me could come off as such. If you didn't know what I've already been through and what I've already had to do, then you can say, oh, he's arrogant, comes off like that. But if you've already been through the fire, and you know how to maneuver and navigate, then it comes from a place of confidence. And I was super confident that I knew I was making the decisions to put me on the other side of things. And like, even in this market's hard. COVID already did a lot of things to a lot of businesses.
2024 is going to be a really tough year for small business.
It's hard for a lot of businesses. I'll tell you, it's hard for bigger, better movers. It's hard for everybody right now. I've had calls for loans or cash advances and, things like that. I mean, it's a tough market for everybody. And unfortunately on the internet and on social media, entrepreneurship looks sexy. I talk about it all the time. And I hate when people do that, because every time that I have a platform or an opportunity to talk, there's a ton of benefits that come with it. There's a ton of risk with it at the same time. And so if people don't shed a light on not only their wins, but also their losses, you're not doing you're doing a disservice to the people that are tuning in or watching your podcast.
Oh yeah, that make you know.
To.
Well, sometimes in this age of digital media marketing, you show the sexy stuff, and you get on these video editors and the cap cuts and all that. And you show like, oh, it's great, but not knowing that even when I showed you this amazing video or this thing, you didn't see the struggle that had been happening for years at a time, or you didn't see that I was probably up at 2 o'clock in the morning, or you saw that, hey, maybe I was having some health struggles and you just didn't know. Yeah. But we as entrepreneurs who are running in this high level success, I think once you decide that you want to be public about what you do, you got to show more of the real things. And I'm working on that place now where, I don't have a problem being truthful, but I was challenged being vulnerable. Okay. So people would see that, yeah, you think that part is, you tell the truth, but I was withholding the vulnerabilities of what I was experiencing to get there. Because somebody will see you and say, man, I must do it. I'm gonna start a trucking company too. I'm gonna get into moving as well. And they're like, wait a minute. Do I have to start it off that way? Or maybe I could just call Mr. White and see if he'd be willing to give me some advice to decide, to understand if I need to do this. Is this the thing for me? It may or may not be.
Right. I think the main thing too, just about entrepreneurship and talking about, making it look sexy and stuff, but the main word that I would go with is like humility.
Yeah. That
too many times people get on a high horse because you did make a little bit of money, you did do something. And at the end of the day, I promise you, I know so many business owners and entrepreneurs that everybody's just trying to make it. They're doing the best they can with what's in front of them, no matter what's going on. And it might be your time now, and maybe your time the next year, maybe your next 10 years. Right. But at some point, you're going to hit that low, and it's going to cycle.
It's coming.
It's high, slow, right? Yep. And so same thing with the economy right now. Talks about it in the Bible, whatever you want to do. But it was crazy because, and this is a true story, the girl I was dating at the time, when I sold my first business, had quite a bit of cash in my pocket. High six figures. I walked to the bank. I remember cashing the check. And I remember when I walked in there, I wanted particularly like wear a hoodie, right? Like I wore a hoodie, it was dirty. And I was like, had all this money in my hand and deposit in the bank. The bank teller looked at me and looked at the check. I was like, I'm going to need that, right? Took a while for it to actually like the funds to clear and, all that stuff. Anyway.
We got to hold.
Yeah, it had all that. I remember that I had prayed. The girl was dating, I told her, I said, I prayed for hard times. She said, why would you do that? Says in the Bible, hard times are going to come. And she said, well, that doesn't make sense. You would pray for them. No. They're already coming, whether I'm praying for them or not. What I would rather do is be expecting it rather than it be unexpected. And I think a lot of times, especially in American society, like we don't plan for our savings are at an all-time low, retirement, nobody does it. People don't plan for the unexpected. Right. And like I wanted to be prepared, and God gave me everything I asked for. He gave me hard times, and I went through the fire, but I felt like I already knew it was coming. Right. And sometimes, again, you make some money, go buy the new car, get the big house, all that. But just be prepared for the day that life comes knocking and something happens.
Because that day is because it's a season.
Yeah.
It's definitely a season. It's like the book of Job, right? It is like the book of Job. But I thought it'd be so my line name when I was pledging was Job. And I was like, oh yeah, he had. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. The bigger story behind that is that there was a guy, everything was taken away and health and all this stuff. And then when it changed for Job, he was in chapter 42. His life changed when he prayed for his friends. Right. The same friends that told him that you must have done something wrong. That were the people that he spoke to. Right. When he prayed for them after that, that's when the blessings came. Yeah. But life comes that way. In business, it comes that way. So if you're not thinking about it, and it's not like you're preparing for the worst, but you have to keep in mind, like, how am I going to operate when there is no plenty, right? And that's because the beautiful things are in the valley. Like you're actually fed more in the valley, and you learn more in the valley than you are at the mountaintop. Like what fruit and vegetables and trees and food is at the top of that mountain? You take little stuff because you learn the skill. You get to the top of the mountain. If you're a hiker or a climber, there ain't no fruit trees at the top. That stuff is at the bottom. Right. So that way, when you got to the top, you've already had what you needed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, well, we can go in a whole lot of different ways in this conversation. Like I had these questions in my head, and now I don't know where they are. But so I think what's inspiring about when you just goes to my head of how life was, and you still found this way. And as you're talking, the things that you said about your mom, I'm like, I could see that. And I've asked you this question. I'm gonna ask you here on the podcast. So, what does your mom think about you now?
She's proud of me, and I'm appreciative of the fact that I can make her happy, and then I'm not a burden to her. But she's extremely proud of her son. So,
you remember the first vacation you took her on?
Remember the last one I took her on.
Okay, what was the last one? Talk about the last vacation.
The last one I took her on. So for her birthday, so my mom's 100% Czechoslovakian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she grew up Catholic, and she grew up on a small farm in South Dakota. So her motherland would essentially be Czechoslovakia, okay, which recently split. So it's Czechia, and then Slovakia is the southern part of the country. And she grew up Catholic. And so she's never been to Rome, okay, and she's never been back home to Czechoslovakia, to where her ancestors are from. So last year, not this most recent Christmas, but the Christmas before, I gave her a trip of a lifetime, 15 days. It was literally myself and my mother. And we flew from here. We went straight to Rome. We spent 5 days in Rome. We visited the Vatican, all that good stuff. Flew from there. She also is a beach girl, loves the beach and the ocean. So we went to Mykonos off the coast of Greece, spent 5 days there. That was probably one of her favorite places. Yeah. And then after that, we flew 5 more days. We went to Czechia and toured all of Prague, saw like one of the oldest clocks in the world, and went to a bunch of castles.
So your mom was born in America. She wasn't born.
Yeah. She's like she's like third generation.
Okay.
That was from here. Okay. And they were actually from Bohemia, which was Czechoslovakia before Czechoslovakia, Bohemia, and then they changed to Czechoslovakia. Now it's Czechia and Slovakia. Okay. So anyways, it's been like 3 generations. But
so that was her first time going back.
She's never been to any of those, and she's never even been to Europe. So that was her first Europe trip, first time ever going over there.
So was that a trip that you were like, I'm gonna do it for my mom? Yeah. Or was she hinting around that she would want to go back? Like,
she never mentioned it. I wanted to do that because she's getting older. My mom's I can't tell you how old my mom is. She'll kill me. But anyways, she's older. And so it was something I wanted to do for her, that while we had this time together and she's able-bodied enough. Yeah. After the pandemic, right? A lot of things happened. Perspective changed, health declined, whatever. My mom can walk, talk, breathe. She's doing great. Yep. And so anyways, I wanted to make sure she at least got to experience that while we were here and together. Right. And so that was something I just kind of thought of, and I thought she would greatly appreciate it. It was funny because on the way back, my mom's a little bougie now. She said, son, I just really want to thank you for taking me over here. It was a trip of a lifetime, but I don't want to go to Mexico anymore.
She's like Cancun, Tulum, Playa.
Yeah. Usually we'll go to like Mexico or something.
It's like driving to Texas now.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a Europe girl now. So yeah.
So how does it make you feel for you to be able to do that?
It's a blessing, man. It's great. I was considering, hopefully she doesn't see it, but probably every year or two from here on out, like being able to do something like that for her, it was worth every penny. Like it was one of my most favorite things that I've spent my money on personally, was having that experience with my mom. I was a bit concerned, like traveling. I was like, with your mom for 2 weeks? Right. I don't know. I mean, I had all
my nerves.
Yeah. And sometimes, I would go out at night and she'd say, my mom's fun, she's a good time, but she'd get on to me if I left her at the hotel. Yeah. You better take your mom with you. Yeah. Right. So I'd take her out for a little bit and we'll go out for drinks and things like that. But honestly, it was a great time. She enjoyed every single country, every city we went to. It was fun. So I'd look forward to hopefully doing it again for her.
Awesome. So if I am want to get into more of like some questions about like just how you've navigated, because one reason why I do this podcast, because I need people to see the amazing talent that we have in Oklahoma. And there are a lot of people that just don't get the attention that they deserve. Not to say that, people are seeking out to be seen, but it to me, it says something when people are getting to see, I mean, you can actually build something great here. I mean, I could go back to Houston at any point in time if I wanted to, but God brought me back to Oklahoma for a particular reason. And I just noticed that I would meet so many amazing people. I'm like, but is this person not getting an award or recognition, or why do we not know about this person, what they do? And so you've had many successes and whatnot, and you're one of the advisors for the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. So you see a lot of great things. What would you say to the person that doesn't want to leave Oklahoma, that really does want to create a business or create a better life? They want to, but they, for whatever reason, they're in an environment where they can't see it. How would you talk to that person
that doesn't want to leave Oklahoma?
They don't want to leave. They want to be here, but they feel like maybe the opportunities are elsewhere and not here. Mm-hmm. But they really want to stay, and they want to make a better life and living and opportunity here.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that you can recreate your own environment wherever you're at, meaning not only physically, but you can leave your environment anytime by the books you read, the people you're in close communication with, proximity wise, things like that. If you have access to the internet, you can change your mind and or opportunities by the people you connect with outside of your specific physical location. I would highly advise, I just canceled one country club membership, but I was a member of two. The people I was in proximity with at those clubs allowed me access to certain people. Mm-hmm. I go to Lifetime Fitness here in Oklahoma City. The access I have, almost every single business owner, a lot of political leaders, a lot of people go to Lifetime Fitness that you wouldn't even know unless you knew who those people were.
It's the proximity to success.
Yeah. And it's being in the right room at the right time. And again, my idea of success is like being prepared for the opportunity when the opportunity presents itself. Okay. So you can't have an opportunity or door open and you haven't done any work already. Right. You've already been strategically working on yourself, knowing what you got going on, and also understanding relationships, right? Like nobody likes to be sold. Right. Do not call me, text me, ask me, and I don't even know you like that, right? Like don't call me asking if I want to buy something, whatever, but just strategically having a friendship. For example, like I'm a member of one of my favorite networking events. It's called Beer Club.
Okay.
All C-level executives or business owners, invite only, spin off of the chamber. It's our own private men's group, basically, right? And I say men's group. There's women in there too, but it's our. I'm
on the commissions on CVB, and they ain't said nothing about the beer club, man.
I'll send you an invite.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Anyway, so we do that. That's been my most profitable group, and I'm not in the group to make money, but because we're genuinely friends and we don't really talk business, we're just friends. Naturally, we do business, right? So for the person that's in Oklahoma, really trying to figure out like a way or join a networking group, join your chamber, whether it's Edmond chamber, every city has a chamber. So Edmond, Oklahoma City, Dale City, whatever it is, they all have chambers. But start putting yourself in rooms and places with people who maybe don't live in your same neighborhood or who don't think the same way as you do. That's good for growth. Every time I listen to like a high level business person, the main thing they always talk about is like learning. Yeah. It's always about changing, like adding more stuff. But the people who continue to like challenge themselves, put themselves in uncomfortable situations, or maybe a room where they're not the smartest person, those are the people that are actually the ones that you want to sit down with. And or grow with or learn from and things like that.
Yeah. And I had to learn that when I moved out of Oklahoma because I didn't know anybody. Mm-hmm. And I think because I, been in, different organizations and Boy Scouts, et cetera, you learn public speaking and the Kiwanis Club and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So when I moved back in 2016, I didn't really know anybody. I had my family, but like my network is all in my friends. I was all in Houston. But I learned from there is I had to find people in proximity to the things that I wanted to experience. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I was the only person like me in the space. Yeah. But I was okay with that because I had lived somewhere else. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think people sometimes think that they can't find commonality because maybe didn't go to the same university or the same church or don't live on the same side of town. And one thing I'd like to do is I like to go to restaurants or bars or lounges when there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
Because for the most part, I'm going to be probably talking to the owner, just a casual conversation and get a chance to learn. Because when you're there and you're actually building a connection, you start to get the humanness of that person. Yeah. It's casual conversation. Hey, give you a tip. Keep on going. I'm not wanting anything from you. Right. Building connection with you, not asking nothing. Yeah. And those have become great relationships for me here because I've made some connections here. As many people as I know of elsewhere, I wouldn't have been able to to get those as easily as I've been able to get them here.
Mm-hmm.
So for a person who is trying to figure out, I'm not comfortable making that first step to expanding my network, what are maybe 2 things you would recommend that they just start with doing? Like start with this one and this one or this one or that, whatever. Maybe two tips for a person that wants to expand their network beyond their comfort zone.
First one, like I said before, I'd look at any local networking event, either in your area or community, and whether it's an event and or join in the chamber, definitely do that. Social media has made it very, very easy also for a lot of people now to join groups, and they have like meetup groups as well on social media. I don't do a lot of those. Now I'm in other doors and access points, but
meetups can be interesting.
Yeah, and so I've never done one, but I'm familiar with the group.
That could be interesting.
Okay, so those, and then also, like I said, the chamber. Actually, fun fact, I don't even know if you know this, but the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, it's the 2nd or 3rd largest chamber of commerce in the United States,
the country,
based on membership. Atlanta's number 1, I'm pretty sure. I forgot who maybe 2 is, but Oklahoma City is the 2nd or 3rd largest in the United States.
That's another fact that people don't know.
So what that means is like basically anybody who's anybody in Oklahoma, and especially if you get in and you're consistent. The other thing is like once you join a group, what I find all the time is like, let's say it costs $50 a month. You do a BNI group or something like that, right? Where they charge membership. If you're not consistent and you don't show up every time, and you're the guy that comes every 3 times, you're not going to maximize.
No.
Another mentor of mine, his name's Brad, so shout out to Brad Willis, but he talks about there's 2 kinds of ROI, return on investment and return on involvement. Your return on involvement,
I like that,
is a measurable task. And so whenever you look at your return on involvement and you're consistently showing up to these events, like I said, in Beer Club, I've moved almost everybody in Beer Club. Like
I like that return on involvement, because if you're not participating, if you're not involved, if you're not active, if you're not consistent, it's hard.
It doesn't matter. It's never going to pay off.
It doesn't matter.
Never going to pay off.
You're going to miss something.
And then you're going to say, oh, stuff doesn't work. It works for everybody else, but it doesn't work for me.
Well,
and that's incorrect. It works for everybody, but you need to know. That's like getting in the car and say, man, it doesn't turn on. Well, you didn't turn the key and it's not in park. You gotta know how to work the system, the machine, right? And so when you get in these groups, the way that the system works, or one way it works, is your return on involvement and being consistent. Because at the end of the day, what I think is not disputable is people do business with who they know, like, and trust.
Absolutely.
And so if they don't know you and they don't trust you, because if you only came once the whole year, if you're a realtor and there's another realtor, they're going to send it to them, right? Because you didn't buy them a beer, or you hadn't been there the last 3 times, and they really don't know if they can trust you or have that friendship or relationship with you. So you have to show up. Once you join it, show up every time, be consistent, and you don't have to bring anything to the table. I think the more that you know that people are just people,
right?
I've been in some very, very high end rooms with a lot of high end people, and I've been in other rooms where nobody has much of nothing. Like, not a lot of money, probably $5 if they even have a checking account. Most of the guys I grew up with literally don't even have passports and never been on a flight, never took a commercial flight in their life. And Dallas is vacation. See what I'm saying? Which is 3 hours from here.
Right.
That's a reality. And at the end of the day, what I've learned from everybody that I've ever encountered is people are just people. At the level of soul, I say this all the time, and the level of marketplace, we're not the same.
Right.
At the level of soul, we're all the same.
Absolutely. What I had to learn is, I thought when I was in those rooms, I had to spend a lot of money. But when I realized that even if I didn't have, if I could afford to buy an iced tea, if I'm engaging with people, I'm adding to the experience. I'm adding to it. Because people, they might buy you something. And I think people will recognize that this person is trying to build a relationship. This person seems like they are of high integrity. They got a good head on their shoulders. It's somebody they want to connect with. I was, I know we're over time. Oh, let me get this camera real quick. Entrepreneurship part. Small commercial break, y'all. So I went to this breakfast. I knew the former, or the president emeritus. I knew him. I didn't know who the new person was. So I was at this breakfast in line. I don't know really anybody there. going to get in the line, and there's a gentleman in front of me, and I just asked him a normal question like, hey, I didn't ask him a question. I made a statement along the lines of the breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like, I'm glad there's some good coffee. I have this thing that I always ask. I'm glad to have some good coffee today. Just casual conversation. We ended up talking about his family, where he's from. I didn't know at that time that was the new incoming president, CEO of the company. So I'm going off, and he goes, hey, you want to sit next to me? He still hadn't told me who he was. Right. So I'm sitting at this table, and they announced who it was. And I'm having this casual conversation with the president and CEO of one of the largest oil and gas companies in Oklahoma. And I'm like, I'm sitting next to, and just because I just asked him a question that I just thought was natural, but this is what he told me. He said, thank you for asking me about me.
Right.
And I didn't get it until after he said it. I was like, oh, people normally ask him things as the title that he is, but not him as a human being. Right. And that was the last time that I actually talked to him. But occasionally when I may see him away, that's an impression that he made. But it also helped me realize that sometimes if you just interact with people who may have status, as just they are just a regular person, because they often don't get someone saying like, hey man, how was your day? Or hey, how was your vacation? Yeah. Like just a regular normal question.
Yeah. A quick story about that. I smoke cigars and drink some whiskey sometime, and I was at a cigar bar. Okay. We were having a conversation about airplanes. I don't know why we were talking about airplanes. We're talking about airplanes. This gentleman turns around and kind of interjects himself in the conversation. Said, no, you're wrong. Here's how the plane works. Here's what's going on. We're talking about airplanes now. Anyways, we asked what he did. He said, I have my commercial pilot's license. Yeah. Or not commercial, but private. He was with the military. Okay. So long story short, I meet the guy. We've met up several times before then. We kind of joined our little group. We're smoking cigars, drinking whiskey. There was a deal with the Chamber of Commerce where Boeing had the top security defense person for the military in Oklahoma speaking on behalf of like national protection or whatever for the borders. Yeah. This guy was a speaker. I went up there and he was talking about nuclear bombs, what we're doing with engagement overseas. I said, man, you said you were a pilot. You lied.
You're like, technically I am.
So again, just goes back to like, and again, we didn't talk anything about business or what he did and vice versa. Before he moved, he now lives, I think he's over in Japan now, actually. And he'd always bring us Japanese whiskey when he come back and stuff for the military. But every time that we would see him, we always get in touch, always hang out. And it was because of just a small, simple, personal conversation that we had sitting at a cigar bar. Yeah. Right. So
I'd say even when I left oil and gas to do OKC Black Keys full time, I may have had a month of savings. I had my 401k. But if it were not from the support from my leadership classmates, shout out to Signature Class 35, LOKC. If it wasn't for them and those relationships, I wouldn't have made it those first 2 years, because after I left, COVID starts to happen. And those relationships have continued to flourish for me. And I hope as they're watching and listening that I've returned the same in relationship to them, because man, relationships matter. How you connect with people can change the trajectory of anything that you want to do. And I asked the question about people here because I need people to understand that you can change your circumstances. You can make anything happen. Just listen to your story. If you put yourself in an environment that's the proximity to success, and connect with people who are doing the things that you would like to do, and just work on building some authentic relationships. So we are a little bit more, about 11 minutes over our time. I don't want to keep it that long. So I know we got flurries and it's a cold weather. You have teams out, moving people. But man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and just sharing your story and being open and transparent. It's definitely been an inspiration to me. So if someone wants to know more about your company and what you do, the service that you offer, or contact you, how do you recommend they find you or in your business?
biggerbettermovers.com. Call, email, anything like that. But find us online. Myself, Instagram, DWhite _405, Daniel White on Facebook and LinkedIn. But aside from me, to you, just want to also tell you, man, proud of you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you what you're doing for Oklahoma City, putting on for people of color, for the city, for yourself, and being an inspiration to a lot of other people who probably didn't think they could do what you're doing. So I want to give you your flowers while you're here too. So
man, I appreciate it. And if y'all see him on Instagram, you can definitely tell he's a Thunder fan.
Yep.
And the Thunder are doing their thing this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing them go deep in the playoffs. I think we got a really good shot of making some things happen. So if y'all wouldn't mind, we're going to end this podcast today. Y'all stay warm, especially if you're here in Oklahoma. Stay warm and be safe. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel at Bigger Than Food is on YouTube. Like it, share it. Thank y'all for tuning in. And like we always say, our mission is bigger than food, and be intentional with how you support a local Black-owned business and restaurant today.